Thank you.
Um,
Awesome.
All right, so just to check in, we're doing the language literacy and numeracy unit, right?
Yeah, so I had a question on that. Is 411 in the diploma?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so and because on Moodle or in the package, it's got a different one. I think it's is it 511 or 501 or something?
Yeah, so 411 is often done as part of the TAE 4.
Yeah.
And then the 501 is in the diploma. Both of them are in the diploma, but what happens usually is people get credit transfer. So it's assumed that people have already done the 411.
Okay, so will this just be signed off as 411 then?
Well, you need to do this one, and you also need to do the 5011 as well.
All right, no dramas. Awesome.
So the difference between this one and the other one is that this one is about dealing with LN challenged individuals. The 501 is about helping other people deal with LN challenged individuals, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's good. Cool.
Cool. So where did you get up to? Did you get a chance to read the book? Have you read the document? Give me a sense of where you're at.
Yeah, so that's all good. And the theory questions are pretty much done. I think the last one, there's stuff in there. I just don't know to what extent you want an answer.
Yeah.
So I think I'm still getting my head around how to answer to a diploma level.
Okay, cool. I'll go through each of the questions for you if that would be your benefit. Did you have a chance to look at the recording that I sent you through?
Yep, that's all good. Yeah, watch that. So that helped with the questions a little bit as well, because a lot of it, probably half of it, I reckon, wasn't quite covered in the book chapter.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I've added in based on my background and having taught ESL for 7 years, and also just my common sense knowledge about the world of LLM. The biggest thing to take away, I don't know if I emailed you this chart or not. Did I get it? Did I email you? Yeah. So for me, if I was going to summarize the entire unit, I would say get to know this chart and get a sense of what are the levels, what are the expectations, and the more that you can get comfortable with the ACSF as a document, the more you'll be able to have a lexicon to describe people's levels and where they sit. So just out of interest sake for me, I think I don't know if I do it on the video or not, but just based on the chart, for me personally, numeracy, I'd probably put myself at around a 2. Oral communication, I'd probably put myself at around a 4, a high 4 possibly. And then writing, I'd probably put myself at a high 4. Reading, I'd probably put myself at a high 4, but I'm not great at reading legislation and things like that. Learning, I'd probably put myself at around a low 5. And as we know, learning is not about your intellect, it's about how well you can plan and utilize resources to get a learning outcome, so to speak. For your sake, what numbers would you give yourself across the 5 core skills?
Oh, I don't know. Okay. I haven't read through it and applied it to myself, so I don't know. I guess fairly similar.
What would be your weakest?
Let me read through it. Maybe oral communication, given that I can't even explain to you which one. Yeah, I guess probably that one. So I think like learning's fairly okay. Maybe 4 or 5, I suppose. Reading. Probably a high 4, I guess. Low 5 even. Like we've got a lot of technical stuff at work and I'm okay with legislation and awards and all that sort of rubbish that we have to do. Writing, again, haven't created a web page. Legal documents, maybe a high 4, I guess.
Cool.
Then, footnotes, references, and appendices, and all that sort of stuff. So I've studied before, so probably a low 5, I guess. Oral communication, maybe a high 3 or a low 4.
Cool.
I'm a fence sitter, as you can tell, so I'm not going to choose one. And maths is probably, I've got a degree in engineering, so
You're doing okay in that area.
5. Sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. And the one of the things to remember is that no one is going to be a 5 across all the core skills. It's very rare for that to happen. Even Sheldon Cooper of Big Bang Theory, he's someone that most people can remember and think about. He would definitely not be a 5 across all the 5 core skills. Very smart guy, but oral communication is about both listening and speaking. And he can't certainly pick up social cues as well as maybe other people could. So I would probably put him at maybe a low 4. For this chart, I think it's a great summary of the core skills. Now, I'm going to be a little bit crude for a second, and just to give you an example. So my regular TAE student, if I thought about them, I would say learning and keep this conversation between you and me. But my regular TAE student, I would say around at level 3 for learning.
Okay.
Reading, I'd probably put them around low 4. Writing, I'd probably say mid 4. Oral communication, I'd say low 4. And numeracy, I don't care about, but generally about a 2. Okay. And I say I don't care because it doesn't really matter in the TAE, so to speak. Now, having said that, that would be the median or the average. Occasionally, we get people from the police department, from emergency services that would definitely be more so in the 4 range. But I get a lot of students at learning level 3, and as I've said, those numbers I've given you there. What would you say would be the typical scores that you would see in new entrants or new trainees that you come across? And be as blunt or as honest as you want. No, there's no judgment on this at all. But go ahead, share. What are your observations with the people that you see come through your training?
For each one, or just in general?
Yes, for each one, please.
Learning, they probably sit around a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, there wouldn't be a 2, I don't think, to even get in. So you get 3s and probably some 4s. For learning. For reading, God, they vary. At least a 3. Yeah. Probably around a 3, and then I guess we get them higher with the types of texts and things that we do give them, so they get more familiar with it. Writing, that really varies. So some of them can probably get down to a high. Is there a high 2 and a low 2? I don't know. I guess they would be most of getting out of a 2.
Yeah.
Probably generally 3, like on average. Oral communication, we get probably a couple of 2s, but 3, and then a couple of 4s, I guess, as well. So none of them are getting quite up to coming in at 5 level, though, I guess. And we probably don't really assess a whole lot at all, so I wouldn't even probably be able to guess, but given what we do, probably around a 3, 2 to 3. Yeah.
What was that for numeracy?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. For me, I'm a bit of a geek with this. I am really always find it fascinating when I use the learning indicator and I observe people's performance, because how someone shows up as a student is a direct reference or reflection of their learning level. So when someone doesn't put their name on a document, doesn't sign a document, doesn't read instructions, forgets appointments, puts off things, or they have to be told multiple times, or they're constantly asked the same question. It's a really great indicator of where they're at on this, chart, essentially, with the learning level. For me, with the workplace as well, the people that come to you and are knocking on your door complaining, they are typically in the level 1, 2, and 3. The people that come to you and say, I've had this problem and this is how I've dealt with it, they're in the level 4s. The people that have come to you and said, we had this problem, this is how I dealt with it, but this is what I'm thinking going forward, this is how we could tackle the issue if it comes up again, those will be in the level 5s. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So it's quite fascinating when you look at students from that, that lens, and knowing this chart, it can take away a lot of judgment that we may have about people and remove a lot of frustration. And we can just go, all right, cool, that's where they're at. And in order to take them up to the next level, this is what we may need to do, or we could try this, or we could try that. But as I said, it's very rare for everyone to be a 5 across all the core skills. And also, you don't maybe necessarily want a 5, level 5 learner doing a low-level job, all right, because they maybe get frustrated very quickly with the task. Okay. So this chart really handy to have, and for your role in what you do, what would you say would be the ideal for anyone to have? So you mentioned that your recruits are what they are, but what would you ideally love them to have as they graduate the training that you deliver? What would you love them to have once they graduated?
Across all of them, or just in general?
Yeah, across all of them.
I think they definitely need a 4 in learning.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variables in our job, and they have to be able to apply whatever they've learnt before to a new, completely unfamiliar situation. So I think that's really important. If not a 5, I don't know if they ever get there. Well, some of them probably do. Yeah, 4 or a 5, I guess, for learning, if you apply it to the job and not learning as such. Reading, only based on the technical text, probably a 4. But a 3 is okay. You could get by doing the job out of 3.
Yeah.
Writing, probably only a 3 they could get by. Yeah, probably a 3 at the very minimum. Oral communication, they have to be probably a 4, but more based on listening.
Okay.
Than actually, they're speaking with callers and things like that, but they have to have that active listening and ability to confirm things with them. Definitely a 3, but a 4 would be great. Numeracy, really all they need is probably a 2. There's some map reading and 24-hour time and things like that. So yeah.
Cool. All right. So know the core skills, know the levels, and you are pretty much good to go. In terms of support strategies, do you guys do how do I put this? Do you even have gaps and deficiencies significant enough that you do need to support people, or people coming into your training, there's no way they would have deficiencies, because in order to be even in the training, you guys screen them out? What's the kind of the landscape?
Yeah, pretty much that. So there's a fair bit of aptitude testing to get in to start with. So they do need to have the basics. But in saying that, probably computer literacy is a big one, which is not sort of covered in this. I read that it's covered in another, like, is it the foundation skills?
Yeah, good question. It's actually, there's another framework. It's called the Digital Literacy Framework.
Yeah.
And I can email that to you if you want.
Yeah.
That is 3 levels. So it's level 1, 2, and 3. And I'll email this to you right now. It covers things like level 2 is the ability to copy and paste. And level 1 is the ability to know that a computer exists and how to turn it on. So yeah, it's a fascinating framework, and it's been really eye-opening for me to certainly work with our digital literacy challenged individuals recently.
Yeah.
So you say that that's more common in your world?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think because we have that testing for them to be able to even get in. So there is a little bit that goes along with that, I think, with the technical language. So probably the reading mostly. And the oral communication. Some people just, I mean, they might do well in an interview, but then when they're actually in the job, they're not listening and speaking and putting it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what I'll quickly do is just give you some support strategies for each of the core skills, so that when we attack your assessment, we've got some ideas to play with. If you want to take a photograph of the slide, you can. If you want to write down any ideas, you can. If you want to completely ignore it, you can. Totally fine, up to you. The support strategies for learning are based on the premise that people need to learn to think for themselves. Okay, and the idea that essentially, in order for someone to go up the levels, they need to be able to find the resources, find the strategies, and not rely on the trainer, but actually rely on themselves, if that kind of makes sense, right? So some ways that we can support people with the learning side of things is coaching more and teaching less. If someone says, you know, what's the answer? You go, that's a great question. Go and have a chat to Mary over there. Mary's got the answer. She'll be able to help you out. Okay. So just the idea that we do less for them and they do more of the work themselves. Okay. And if we don't do that, then people can expect everything to be spoon-fed for them. So assist the student in developing study strategies. Yeah, it's a vanilla approach, but at the end of the day, if someone's not motivated, then they're not going to do it. Coach them through the challenges with materials, case studies, problem-solving tasks, find areas of significant interest in contextualizing materials. Gamification, regular review, students teach each other, and accountability buddies. That's something I absolutely love to set up. Discuss growth mindset versus a fixed mindset with learners. Is there anything from this slide that you guys already do? Anything of interest that you think you should be doing more of?
The coaching we do, I guess. Case studies, problem solving skills we try and teach, but we probably need to work more on actually teaching that and finding the line between whether people can be taught it or whether they just can't do it. I think that's a struggle for us. Some people just, they can't learn it. So I don't know how do you keep teaching them if there's a limit to what they can actually take in?
Yeah, and also a limit to what they're actually empowered to do as well.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, questions like how else could you do that? Where else could you look for the answer? What is the outcome that you're looking to achieve? For what purpose are you looking to do that? How specifically is that a problem for us? And any kind of question that gets someone thinking, but doesn't provide the answer, is always going to be a good approach. So learning, again, is just the idea to get them to think for themselves, not give them the answer. Reading, essentially reading is the problem with reading is that most people write to a level for themselves, not for the reader. And a simple little story that I used to illustrate this is I was at an English as a second language school in Melbourne one time, and they had the evacuation procedures on the wall. I was trying to read it. I'm a native speaker. I was trying to read it. I couldn't even follow the instructions to get out of the building. And this school was an English school. And I'm thinking, wow, these students are going to be struggling to even read one line from this page here. And it was a great example of the fact that they had written it to policy, but they hadn't actually written it to audience. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah. So the concept about reading is write to your audience, not what the expectations may be just for the document and the way that you may want to write it. So in terms of reading, the more pictures you can use, the better. The more you can simplify the words, the better. Smaller chunks, steps, translation of words. The simplification of words is a huge one. And Simplification. For me, I am always surprised why people struggle with this so much. But as part of the assessment, you need to send me in materials that have been adjusted, so to speak. But the better you can get at abstraction and levels of complexity, the better you'll be able to create materials that are readable for a variety of levels. So in my time teaching, we got very sensitive to levels of complexity. For example, stationary item, pen, writing thing. We just got very good at being able to simplify words, smaller and smaller and smaller. And as a result of practicing that, I got very sensitive to levels of understanding or comprehension that someone would have to any word that was on page. Because at the end of the day, if it's too hard, well, yeah, you can always look to simplify till you get to the core. So it's definitely a skill that I remind people to keep working out. So with support strategies for reading, my biggest tip is write it for the reader, not for yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So with writing, the philosophy around writing is show them what a good job looks like. This is actually a story that happened to me literally this week. My boss sent me an email. He said, Mark, could you send me through a summary of your work career because we're tendering for some training. I'm like, all right, cool. I sent him through my bio and he wrote back and said, oh, could you be more specific about what you did before you came to spec? I'm like, okay. Then I wrote that back and then he said, oh, could you put in the times that you did each of these things? I'm like, okay, cool. Send it back. And then he's like, oh, actually, here's one that someone else had already done. Just copy this. And I'm like, show me what a good job looks like. Show me your expectations and I'll do what's actually what you're looking for them. And it comes back to the fact that often with writing, students are expected to do something, but they don't know what a good job looks like. So at an RTO I worked at, we had a number of students that would fail the crowd control register. And they would all fail because they would do, a couple of lines here or there. And then they hand it in and the assessor would mark them wrong. Then they would go, all right, well, what's it meant to look like? And the assessors would ask me, how do we fix this problem? I'm like, well, when you're training them, do you show them completed examples? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, that may be your problem. So essentially the idea with writing is if someone doesn't know what the expectations are, then they've got no hope in being able to actually fulfill requirements, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'm a huge fan of templates. I'm a huge fan of allowing people to copy what a good job looks like and then going off and contextualizing one of their own. Okay. I'm not with the strategies, they're going to fall into two categories. One is support and one is developmental. So Scribe would be support, but it's not going to help them develop the skills.
Yeah.
Oral comms. We've got translator again, which is support but not developmental. Full stops and check-in is basically the idea that people need time to process information. So if I'm going to give you instructions, I wouldn't say, yeah, turn to page 45 in your book and then think about what you did on the weekend and then turn to the person next to you and do this. I would literally say, turn to page 45 in your book. Turn to the person next to you and do X, Y, Z. So actually putting a pause in between your instructions and any communication that you've got with individuals. And when I'm teaching this, the example I use is Border Force and that TV show or even police when they're over communicating to individuals or victims of crime, so to speak. But you guys teach effective communication on the phone anyway, so it's common sense for you guys. Unfortunately for most trainers though, they don't have conscious awareness around how many words they're using and how it's landing for the individual.
I think in our job it's really hard to do as well, because you get really instinctive about what you're doing and it's very time critical, so it is hard for us to slow down and teach people how they need to be taught and not how we just do the job. So yeah.
So full stops and check in is just a reminder for myself to always slow down, particularly on online delivery. I've got to speak even slower. Get students to repeat back instructions. Yeah, good luck with that one. Provide written instructions. Show a video with subtitles. Role play with pre-written scripts. Definitely, I'm a huge fan of that because you can preload vocabulary. Next one, advanced hacks. It's something I just added in on a personal level. Watch your pace. It's just something that we're talking about there. Repeat things multiple times, but not in the same way. So if you can get good at saying things more than once, but not just, all right, do this, do this, do this. If you can say, for example, the Australian Core Skills Framework has 5 levels. Those 5 levels are really important for you to know in your job. And as you get better using those 5 core skills, right, I just said the same thing, but I said it multiple times. Use the expression not yet, but in a moment. Not yet, but in a moment, we're going to look at the assessment. Okay, not yet, but in a moment, we're all going to stand up and do X, Y, Z. What often happens is people say, all right, stand up, but people start doing it before the trainer's ready. And then the last one is focus on the blue tree. Say it the way that you want people to think about it, i.e. we're now going to go into a topic. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be amazing. That's what I want you to think about it. But if I say we're going to go into a topic, it's going to be dull and boring, bear with me, you're immediately going to disengage. Okay, so just important to say it the way you want people to think about it. Numeracy, last of all, we got numeracy. I find this one challenging to support because I'm bad at numbers, but you got realia to explain numerical concepts, pizza. So if you're teaching fractions, and you can obviously use real world items. Make examples in training relevant to what's being studied. Start with small numbers, practice formula multiple times. Videos that explain the process, provide a calculator, provide case studies, put numbers in both words and figures, and encourage errors to make mistakes to build confidence. Get students to talk you through how they're doing things. And my only pet peeve around numeracy is avoid asking the question why. Why did you do that, or why did you come up with that answer? A how question is going to be more conducive to someone feeling comfortable.
Okay.
Because if you say, why did you do it that way, then I'll be like, I don't know, it's the best I could do.
Yeah.
Cool. So your group don't really have that much issues with numeracy anyway, so not much of a drama, but let's come back to the assessment that we're working with there.
So did you need the answers before today for the 10 questions? Was I meant to send them?
No, that's fine. So if you've done them, great. I imagine whatever I've just gone through will have validated or changed your opinion.
Yeah. So that's good.
Yeah, no, it's all good. But question 1, were you all good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Question 2, any dramas?
No, I think, like you said, just getting used to the words in the actual, especially that chart, but just getting used to the individual levels.
Mm.
Are
This
people going to
one,
have different answers?
what's that?
Are people going to have different answers though between?
Yes,
Yeah.
they will. So the thing with LN is you can have your own interpretation as long as you can justify it.
Yeah.
So as long as you can say, well, this person's probably a 2 because of X, Y, Z, that's fine. Okay. And with this one, question 2, you may want to use a document that's titled, what is the ACSF and indicators of performance? Okay. Question 3, you were fine with that one?
Yeah, that's fine.
4.
Yeah, I think so. As long as the box doesn't determine how much you want out of an answer.
No, not at all. Not at all.
The first assignment, the text was big, and then as you typed more, it got smaller, and that was really, really reassuring. But this one, the text started off little, so
yeah,
it doesn't look like much.
Yeah. Question 5, basically you can pick one core skill, say reading, and say, all right, for reading challenges, we would do X, Y, Z. And then the next one, writing, we would do this. Then oral communication, we would do that.
Okay, yeah. That's
6, any dramas?
What I had just seemed really basic, that's all, but I didn't have any issues with it, just as long as they were, and then I be in depth. Cool.
Oh, good. Reasonable adjustment, you probably heard it, still the girls heard it.
Yeah.
Number 8.
Yeah, that one was okay. We have actually nothing within our organisation at all. I think there's just a one-liner and an implementation guide that says if you've got any issues, contact your trainer. So it's really sad actually, but hopefully thought into it now.
Cool. I imagine you put more than that in your answer, right?
Yeah. It's just external, public available.
Yeah. Number 9, social sensitivity. Don't make people. Phrase not working here. Don't single people out. Make them feel awkward. Cultural sensitivity. How did you approach that one? Were you just thinking of a particular group and how you would?
I started general, but then found a fair bit on teaching Indigenous learners.
Okay.
In particular, so that was really interesting. But
all right, number 10. You all good?
Yeah, I think so. That was the one that I probably just didn't have much on. There was nothing really that guided the answer. I guess it was just sort of common sense.
Yeah.
What I would think of doing, but is there anything that I'm supposed to be
No.
looking for in particular?
No. All right. So next part 2, the workplace project. Did you get up to here? Did you start it? How'd you go?
No, I read through it. So I've gone through a bit of it. I think that was in the video. So I've gone through the video and how that applies to it, but you'd said just to do the theory questions.
Yeah. So essentially, all we're doing is going to the unit of competency from training.gov.au, and we are looking at the performance criteria, and we're going to find words that would fit into each of the categories. And you can put in 2 or 3, that's fine, and then you're going to guess what level that may be.
Yeah, that should be fine.
and it's called a trigger word analysis, and yeah, it's the way they recommend it. Section 2, the bar chart here, I'll give you a strong hint, and I'll say it's actually profile 1 is her answer.
Okay.
Okay, and then what you do need to do is write down her scores. So Janine is the learner, and then her score is profile 1. And so learning level 2 for her, reading 3, writing 2, oral 2, and numeracy 1. Then when you come down to this section here, it says, essentially it says, what are her scores? And then why would you give her those scores? Well, why she got those scores? So when you click on the scenario, it opens up to her documents, and you can read through that.
Yeah.
Cool. Next part here tests your ability to draw a dotted line on a graph in a PDF.
Okay.
So if you're not sure how to do that, you can just print it off and just handwrite it. But if you do know how to do it, then you can try it. My suggestion is do it at the end of the assessment, because if you do it and then you don't know how to get back to the typing bit or the typing icon, that can freak you out.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but essentially you're just drawing a dotted line from whatever her scores were. So it was 2 for learning, then 3 for reading, and writing, whatever it was. Does that make sense? Okay. Then B, her biggest skill gaps were learning, oral communication, and writing, I think.
Yeah, reading was up.
Yeah. And then support resources that you can help with, help assist Janine. Again, you could just mention public resources. You could mention local English schools, and maybe the local TAFE, and maybe mentors in her workplace.
Yeah.
Okay. So section 3 is about your ability to take something that's terrible and make it usable. So hopefully it's not something you've got too much of at work, but essentially you're looking for something that's quite complex, and it could be a policy document, it could be a poster, it could be a PowerPoint slide, 2 or 3 slides that are really complex, and your task is to simplify it to someone that has very, very basic reading skills.
Right.
Okay. So if you were picking out slides and you pick 3 slides that are really complicated, got a lot of text on them, and then you just turn them into 3 slides that have just got pictures on them.
Okay.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of that to start with, but if there's like some technical procedures or things like that, and I've done quick guides or quizzes, training.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. And yeah, I think quick guides is a great one. And just be very sensitive to any words that could still be a little bit complex, and you may need to add some definitions or something like that. But cool. Section 4 is essentially the case study from Unity Water, and this was about them rolling out some technology, knowing that they had some LN challenged individuals with digital literacy and also reading and writing challenges as well. So section 4 is just about watching the video and then answering the questions.
Okay.
And there is a video on the project, and then there's a video on the outcomes.
Yeah.
And so if you watch those videos, you'll be fine. If for any reason the links don't work, just let me know, but they should. And if they don't, just go to Google and type in Unity Water case study and it will come up, trust me. Section 5, reflective practice. I address issues relating to language in my role when and this is just really general stuff. So it's like when I sit with my new recruits and go over technical terms required for their job. Okay. That's pretty much the extent of it. I address issues relating to literacy, i.e. writing, in my role when I go over how to write up reports of incidents. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And that's pretty much the extent of the assessment.
Okay. Cool.
So there's not a huge amount there, and yeah, you should be able to get it done.
Yeah.
I won't say easily, but I will say you should be able to at least have some confidence in filling out the majority of it.
Cool.
Okay. When did you want to set up our next call?
So that will probably at least I don't know. What have I got on this week? Maybe 2 weeks? Is that, or are you thinking for?
No, that's fine. So around the 6th. Yeah, so the 6th.
Around then.
The 5th or the 6th.
Yeah, it's gonna shift you. What's the latest in the day that you can go, or earliest for that matter? So, because we've got a recruit course starting on the 4th, so it's going to get a bit harder. Yeah, the 6th is probably good. Just if it's the same sort of time, is that?
Yeah, that's fine. So about 3:30.
Sorry.
About 3:30.
Yeah, if that's possible. Sorry, I can't hear.
Is 4 better for you?
Yeah, that would be really good if it could be. Sorry, it's late in the.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Done. Okay, cool. 4 o'clock on the 6th.
Okay.
All right, and the next one we might go through the ASS 502 unit.
Sure.
Cool. All right.
Can I ask questions for like work-related stuff as well of you? So
yeah, please. Yeah, it's fine. Go for
it. We're talking about people that just like you're trying to coach them and get them up to that level, but they just kind of won't do anything for themselves. So we have one particular person at the moment we're trying to get through a teach out period for a Cert 4 that we do. And this person has some sort of very low level in learning and writing, extremely low, and trying to get like them generating answers to questions on their own bat, but they're just one of those ones that kind of expects to be spoon-fed the answer. At what point, like as an RTO or as a trainer, do we just go, you've just got to submit us what you've got, and if it's not good enough, then it's a fail attempt?
How many so is the situation that they've submitted stuff and it just hasn't been up to scratch?
Yeah, so just completely missing the point of the question. Most other learners have been completely okay with it, but there's definitely some low level of, like, obviously going through these learning, reading and writing, communicating. But yeah, we've given them the same as everyone else, sort of really tried to draw their attention to parts of documentation and things like that and put it into context or give an example and all that sort of stuff that you talked about before. So is there just a point where someone just isn't suited to that, to obtaining that qualification?
Do you think it's going to hit? Do you think it will hinder them going into the job role?
So it's the qualification. Will it hinder them getting the qualification? No, but I don't think that person would ever be able to apply for the position that qualification is used for.
Right. So what's the context under which they're studying?
As in, like, they've chosen to take on. Yeah. So you can apply to do the certificate 4. So we teach a certificate 3 to recruits. Later on down the track, you can apply to do the certificate 4 and then potentially apply for a promotion. So you would need that to be able to apply. But it's not like they need it for their current position.
Okay. So for their current role, they're surviving, but they're getting aspirational, but they don't really have the skills.
Yeah.
And potentially they lack self-awareness around how far off the mark they are.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you put that down to a lack of needing to try, or a lack of wanting to try?
Bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not having to have ever probably tried.
Right.
Yeah. And an expectation that it's hard to not judge, but probably a bit of an expectation that it'll just happen.
Yeah.
But obviously provided so much support as much as we can.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I often come back to do they know what the hi hubby. That's right. Oh, hi child.
Go, Daddy. Sorry.
That's okay. I often come back to the question of, do they know what a Cert 4 answer needs to look like and should look like?
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, I would often get my trainers to, at the very beginning of every course, show of what a quality answer would look like. I would also say, all right, the question said describe X, Y, Z. A great quality answer would look like this, this, and this, and this. And this is an example that someone else has given. And as a result, they got this correct. Tick.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I also showed them in bad examples of bad answers. So students off the bat, off day one, got a sense of, well, this is the level they need to perform at. And if they're not there, then they're not there. So that they knew why they were getting things wrong when they were getting things wrong, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I found that having upfront conversations about an AQF level 4 is this, an AQF level 3 is this. And also throwing in activities where students have formative assessments where maybe they mark each other's work, but also where they do a lot of fault finding activities where they listen to or they read and see documents that are bad examples, and they have to realize what bad looks like. Because many people are doing their best, but when they have self-awareness exercises like that, they can self-disqualify. so to speak, and they can realize that it's not the trainer's fault that they're doing bad. It's because they just are not performing up to the AQF level.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, heaps. Yeah.
And so we used to have a glossary of terms at the beginning on page 1, which was describe equals this, explain equals this, list equals this. And one day I might be able to find it. I think I actually still have it. If you send me an email, I won't have it, but don't use that as just the answer. But it could be a great opportunity for you to sit down with your trainers and go, all right, what does a great quality answer look like for our Cert 4? And in the instructions, you may want to be saying, all right, we expect 2 to 3 sentences and we expect an example. If it says describe, then we want in your own words to share the process for doing something or something like that. So the clearer you get on what a good quality answer looks like and what a bad one looks like, you can then say, all right, cool, this is nothing personal, but right now your answers are not meeting what an AQF level 4 looks like. And as a result of that, we're giving you 3 submissions, but unfortunately you're just not hitting the mark. What you may want to do is go off and, study for 2 or 3 months, come back, re-enroll, and we'll see if you can get your answers to the required level for the AQF level 4. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Thanks.
Because at the end of the day, if they can realize it's not them, it's their production, then they can start to go up in the levels of self-awareness. And it's a good learning moment for going forward. Okay, cool. As trainers, what do we need to say in our materials? But also verbally, what do we need to be saying in regards to setting expectations?
Yeah, and I think that's the mark that was really missed when they wrote this program, this Cert 4. It's lacking in instruction. There's no strength to it whatsoever. So it's being rewritten, and it'll be as well. So it's good to know that we're on the right track, trying to put that stuff in next time. Thanks.
That's all good. So if you want to flick me an email and ask for the it's called instructional design words. And I should have it from one of the RTOs I worked at, but really handy. And we were dealing with security students, and they expected everything handed to them on a silver platter. So we had a lot of those situations that you're describing there.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
Awesome. All right. You've got family that are hanging around, so I'll let you go.
Yeah. Thank you.
All good. Alrighty, I'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
Thanks so much, Mark.
All right, bye.